I'm not the biggest fan of WWE in 2025. Let me tell you why. This isn't a video of me complaining and ranting. I'm not going to scream. I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to berate WWE. You know, there are positive things that I will talk about, but let me get into why I'm not a fan, like I said earlier. WWE in 2025, I never really, I'm not hopping on the bandwagon when other people say that it feels lifeless, but that's really how I feel. I really feel like it has a lot of energy drained out of it. From what makes me say this is, the lack of, I guess, effort, I would say, as far as the presentation goes. Like back when I was a kid, I first started watching WWE in 2008 when I was a 5-year-old. So, I've been watching wrestling for 17 years, and it's crazy. It's almost been 20 years, and I'm still a fan. But yeah, when I was a kid, we used to have there were no ring, there were no mats and no sponsors on the ring. It was just, a blank canvas. And I'm not here to, rant about the logos on the mat or anything like that. But the logos on the mat, it's kind of like an eyesore. It's a little bit distracting. It's not too bad or whatever. I can see why a lot of people don't like it, because a lot of people say it feels like very corporate and that they sold out. So, like I said, I understand where they're coming with from that. But it's not too big of a problem. But now they even have Turnbuckle. They have the ads on them as well. Like what kind of ad sponsorships did they have? They had like the Prime and the Snickers and the Netflix and stuff. I feel like WWE, like they really, I guess kind of like they did sell out, even with the pay-per-views, the presentation of the pay-per-view stages, and people were like, well, they have to sell more seats, which is understandable, but I feel like, at least maybe like set some props up, you know what I mean? So each pay-per-view has like a somewhat of a special vibe to it, it doesn't have to be too expensive, but, at least some effort as to making the stages look different or unique. Another thing that I'll say that I don't like is how the feuds have been, because like I love Triple H as a wrestler, but as a booker, I don't hate him, but I feel like his booking is very, very like 50-50. There's a lot of things that he does that I like, but there are also things that he doesn't does that I don't like, which is what this video is about. So, like I said, with the dragged out storylines, for example, Austin Theory, he's the best example I could give. Him and Grayson, like as of right now, is why I'm making this video. They're still in a tag team and they're still partners, and they've been teasing a breakup for a long time. Somebody had even brought up the point. They said that Grayson Waller and Austin Theory, they've been teasing a breakup since before Jacob Fatu debuted in WWE. And in that time span of them teasing a breakup, Jacob, he joined the Bloodline, broke up from the Bloodline, became a champion. That's crazy to think about, the fact that they've been teasing this for over a whole entire year. And people were saying, push Austin Theory, put that rocket on him. And yeah, that right there is a big reason for me. And just overall, like the lack of Titantrons, we just have the videos and it's just, the name. So somebody will come out and it'll be Randy Orton. And instead of the Titantron, because think about it like this. Would you rather watch a music video or would you rather watch a lyric video? The words and stuff on the screen. It's like we used to have pictures and, and the videos of people performing their moves and, doing cool stuff like, I guess, like shadow boxing before, on the screen. And now it's just, we don't have that anymore. And I think that right there was a very big, important part of people's characters, having that Titantron to showcase what they can do. And another thing that was really helpful as far as presentation of the character, I'm sure you guys all know, were the theme songs and how great the theme songs were. There are a lot of people that say, oh, Jim Johnston, he was basic, he wasn't that good. But the thing is, Jim Johnston, he had a passion for it. And you could tell when he was making the music that he really put his blood, sweat, and tears. He said that Vince McMahon sometimes would give him maybe like 5 hours to make a theme song. And he did the best that he could. And, when he did eventually get that, time, like more than 5 hours, he was bumping out bangers. Majority of the iconic theme songs that you hear in wrestling, were from him. Stone Cold's theme song, Undertaker's theme song, The Rock's. And when, I'm like being specific, like the I Won't Do What You Tell Me, I think that's the name of Stone Cold's theme song. The Rock's, the electrifying theme song, the Undertaker, the Graveyard Symphony, the Ministry of Darkness, Kane's theme song. Even the ones that weren't performed by him but were performed by other bands, he was the one who had came up with the music for them to perform. He wrote the lyrics, like Triple H's theme song, The Game. He wrote those lyrics. He came up with like that chord progression, and he gave it to Motorhead for them to perform it. But that right there, that was all his work. Not just that, but Batista's I Walk Alone, Lita's A Love, Fury, Passion, Energy, Trish Stratus, her theme performed by Trish Stratus. That right there, that was all Jim Johnston. All those iconic things, that catalog is crazy. And Def Rebel, they're not giving us that same energy. They're not giving us those same songs that are being pumped out. We're just getting generic songs that were made in like, I forgot, but they had exposed Def Rebel actually for being lazy and for using royalty-free loops. And the sad part about it is that Def Rebel, they're not bad. They know what they're doing. The problem is like, they're just, I guess maybe they aren't being paid enough or whatever. They're just, I guess, working however they get paid accordingly. So if we actually had somebody who was more, like I said, somebody who really loved and was passionate about this and knew how important the entrance music was to somebody's identity, then we would have, a lot better of a presentation of WWE. I just feel like really like the presentation of WWE has just gone down, like, to summarize what I just said. And, my cases, like I just named, they're pretty strong, because there are some people, I saw some people, like, because on Instagram I had made posts about it. They were like, oh, we don't need Titantrons. We don't need Jim Johnston back. And it's like, you can say that all you want, but at the end of the day, those things, they existed when WWE was at its peak. And some people will say rose-tinted glasses is all just nostalgia, but it really isn't, because you have to look into it. Like I said, those things where you have somebody who's actually very passionate about music and they're gonna put out their best work versus somebody who's just like, oh, I'm not getting paid too much, so let me just go put something together. And the same thing with the Titantrons, with the, oh well, we don't need good Titantrons, let's just put up somebody's name like Randy Orton and show like I guess like little animated stakes or whatever, instead of actually showing him RKOing people. It just feels very corporate. That's really what I'm trying to say. It's very corporate, very I guess a shell of its former self, lazy, and to put it in one word, lazy. And WWE, it's not the worst that it's been. There definitely are things that I do like about it, but like I said, this video is, about the things that I feel like they could improve on. So let me think, what else is another thing that they can improve on? Well, yeah, another thing that they can improve on is the way that they format the shows. For example, the shows, like, they always feel very samey. Like, we'll have a lot of matches, they end in like screwy finishes. We need or there'll be a lot of like brawls and stuff. Vince Russo, he said instead of always just having people brawl, why not take it outside? It's like, I haven't really seen that many outside brawls now that I think about it. There have been a few, but like majority of the stuff is like, it was been on repeat. Like, somebody will say something and then another person will come to the crowd and then they'll brawl in the ring and then they'll be separated, like, and then they'll just come back and then they'll fight again. It's like, we're getting a lot of the same stuff. We need something more creative. And the segments as well. The segments, they feel very dragged out and very boring. Like, there's a lot of 20-minute segments and stuff, but like, we're on crunch time here. And also another thing that I don't like is the lack of matches. The 5-match PLE, and just straight up on SmackDown and on Raw, we'll have like barely any matches, and it's just ads all the time. Ad. And I'm not talking about the ads on the ring. I'm talking about like the actual ads. Like, we'll have just, I'll never forget. There was this one time on SmackDown where we had just came back from an ad. Somebody was making their entrance, and literally when they were like done with their entrance, we got another advertisement. I'm just like, wow. I understand you gotta make your money, but it's really affecting your show. And another thing that really has gotten bad, well, I guess I'll make another video about this. Another thing about the company that has gotten really bad is the lack of stars that are on the show. So, for example, a lot of Triple H, he's trying to be, a better boss than Vince was. He sees like, okay, maybe I should give people more time so they're not burned out. And with that, happening, we've eventually had the show suffering from lack of star power because a lot of people are, on vacation. And it's like one of those things where it's like, I don't want to see people, burnt out and always on TV if they're gonna be, like, I guess, miserable and so overworked. But at the same time, we definitely do need to have, a certain amount of stars on the show in order for it to, be good. Because nobody wants to see the people who are, not stars like the jobbers or the mid-carders, you know what I mean? Like back in the day, you wanted to see Stone Cold, you wanted to see The Rock, you wanted to see Triple H, Undertaker on SmackDown. You didn't want to see Al Snow and Bob Holly. I'm not trying to be mean or nothing. I love those two, but they weren't on the same level. So that's what I'm trying to say. There were people who probably did tune in for them, but compared to the people who wanted to see Stone Cold and The Rock, like I can guarantee you that the number was a lot lower when they're like, oh, Al Snow was going to be in the main event. There's no Stone Cold. I don't really care for this. That's probably what a lot of people were thinking. So right now, WWE, they have a lot of things that they can improve on. And the shows, like I said, they just feel like there's so much that needs to be stepped up with. Triple H is a booker. He's doing a decent job. He could be doing a lot better, like I said. He's not doing a terrible job, but there are things that are done where I'm like, there's people who defend everything that Triple H does. And I get it, you guys like Triple H, they're like, oh, but things are so much better with him as far as the way that people are being treated. And the thing is, like, even though Triple H may be better for WWE as far as PR goes, the way that things are running, there definitely has to be somebody who can admit, like, things aren't the best that they could be when they could be greater. And if they did make these changes that I just named, WWE would be a lot more popular and the ratings would go up if they did try more with the presentation. And also another thing that's a problem, I guess this is a good way to end the video, actually save this best topic for last, I almost forgot about it, is the pricing. The prices are out of control. Even Randy Orton, somebody had, a fan had went up to him and they talked about it, and they were like, yo, you won't believe how much they're charging. When they told Randy, he was like, whoa, I think it was like the prices for WrestleMania or Elimination Chamber or something like that. He was just like, that's ridiculous. And it's like, this dude wrestles, he works for this company, and even he's like, yeah, it's way too much money. So they're outpricing the common fans. The people who, go to these shows and they're loyal, they're basically being told like, hey, F you, if you can't pay for it, you can't afford it, then that's too bad, we'll go find somebody else. And the last thing that you want to do is go out there and mistreat your fans. And I guess this leads me to another thing right there, is the kind of don't be a critic thing that Triple H was saying. Triple H is basically like, don't watch as a critic, watch as a fan, in a way of saying like, if you're here to criticize us, then you are not a fan of wrestling. And that couldn't be further from the truth, because you need those people who critique wrestling. I guess some people call it like the hate watchers. A lot of people that don't like it, don't watch. But the thing is, if everybody who had a problem with wrestling, if everybody just stopped watching it, you would see those ratings decline badly. And there might end up being like no business for anybody to watch. There would be no WWE if the people who criticized it, weren't watching it. Because at the end of the day, you can't please everybody. Every single person who has like one critique isn't, a hater. So like, everybody doesn't like everything like I just said. There's somebody out here who has something that they don't like going on with the product. And there's people like, you can voice one little thing that you don't like, and they'll be like, well, don't like it, don't watch it. We don't need you here. And it's like, you need these people who critique it because they still care, and they're going to be around for a long time. You know what I mean? I watched WWE, like I said, for 17 years. I was there during that 2017 through 2020. The late 2010s of WWE was terrible. We had so many bad segments, so much cringy stuff. It was very tough times being a fan of WWE in the late 2010s and even 2020. They did step it up in 2021, with Roman Reigns and the Bloodline storyline. But the things before that, it's really hard to see like how WWE survived such a big hit. And I didn't even know this because I was a child, but a lot of people didn't like the late 2009 and 2010, 2011. A lot of people believe WWE sucked at that time. They didn't even like 2012. A lot of people just thought that the WWE in the 2010s sucked, except for like the mid 2010s. So WWE right there, they have like, those people who hate, I guess, hate the product and complain about it. Like I said, we need those people, because those people are still keeping WWE's name in their mouth. They're still keeping it relevant. They're keeping that around. And like, for example, like the Attitude Era, WWE, they used to be able to pull like, look, they used to be competing with football and basketball, and now, they're not. They used to get like around like about 7-8 million views, and now they're only getting like 2.9. And on Netflix, the Netflix debut, it was 6 million, and then they dropped now to half of that. So it's like, if you want the product to improve, you have to listen to the people that are critiquing it, because we're giving you suggestions. There's a difference between critiquing something and just crapping all over it. I don't want to see WWE fail. You know what I mean? Like I said, I've been a fan for 17 years. If I wanted WWE to fail, I wouldn't be watching it. I love wrestling so much that I decided to make a page, about it, talking about it. So that's all I gotta say. Make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and peace out. Thank you for listening.